Hi, everyone. It's Kathleen, and this is the Presidential Podcast. So this is a special edition of the Presidential Podcast. It's March. It's Women's History Month. And so this month I'm doing a dedicated podcast focusing on women here at Gavilan who contribute in everyday, remarkable ways to the life of the college and to the success of our students. This is the first of a two-part series this month, a little bit shorter podcasts, and the idea is to focus on, again, the amazing women that we have here at Gavilan. So if you've gone on the International Women's Day website this month, you know that the theme for this year for International Women's Day is Balance is Better. And I encourage you to go on the website because there's a lot of great information on the website. It's a call to action for a more gender-based and a more gender-balanced world. Women have definitely come a long way when it comes to gender balance, yet there's still even more to be achieved. From grassroots activism to worldwide action, we are definitely in an exciting period of history where the world expects balance in all that we do, and women definitely have a voice at the table. It's growing more and more each year, and there's more work to do. And women are contributing more to that balance than ever before. So a recent study on the website for Lean In on the status of women in the workplace provides some interesting statistics on where we are today as women in the workplace. And I wanted to share a couple of facts from that website with you about women in the workplace. And I would encourage you to go to the IWD, International Women's Day, Lean In, Workplace Statistics PowerPoint to take a look a little bit for yourself. But we do know that women are still underrepresented at every level in corporate America. That is not changing. We also know that as we look forward at statistics in the future, in the U.S. particularly, that 1 in 5 positions in the C-suite at the CEO level, leaders, is a woman. So still underrepresented, and only 1 in 25 is a woman of color. And so, the old school explanations do not really hold up anymore. Women need to continue to ask for more. And we know that women are competitive in the workplace, even more so than before. Women are being promoted, but not being promoted in accelerated fashions. Men still outnumber women as managers, 68% to 32%. And we know that women need to continue to have more support from their managers for accelerated promotional opportunity in the workplace. So I would encourage you to take a look, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of these statistics at the end of my podcast. So today, the two women that I selected to bring in as podcast guests are Nancy Bailey, my own Nancy Bailey. I say my own. She's been my assistant in the president's office for the last 3 years in my work as the college president, and Sydney LaRose. Sydney LaRose works in the Institutional Research, Planning, and Effectiveness Office. These two women are forces of energy and light on our campus who will share their history and experience with us today. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to the Presidential Podcast, and I am here with two fantastic women on campus. I described them earlier as two forces of energy and light on our campus, and they are indeed. So I have Nancy Bailey here in the spacious podcast booth, and Sydney LaRose. So Nancy is the executive assistant in my office, and Sydney is the program specialist extraordinaire in the RPI office. And so, Nancy and Sydney, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
All right. So I have an extensive list of questions for you both, but we'll start out with sort of the icebreaker here. So how long have you worked at Gavilan, and what do you do? Who wants to start?
I'll start.
All right.
I've been with Gavilan for 21 years. I started in administrative services, but currently for the last 4 years, I've been the executive assistant to the president, and I also support the governing board of trustees.
So 21 years, Nancy? Wow. And you do have some news that you can go ahead and share with our podcast audience right away, right? You have some news to share about
Sure.
what's happening in the spring?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to say I feel I've been blessed and gifted with the job at Gavilan College because in those 21 years, I've never dreaded coming to work or had any anxiety about it. I've loved coming to work each and every day, and I think that is something that you can only hope for in your lifetime. And so I feel so fortunate for that. And but it's coming to an end. And June 30, I'll be retiring and turning over my position to a new person, and I'm sure they'll do a wonderful job for the college.
Okay. Well, I'll try to reserve my comments, but having Nancy at my side over the last 3 years as I've tackled this big job has been exceptional. And so when Nancy made her decision to retire, that was certainly bittersweet for me, but it's been exceptional having you by my side. So I just want to say that right off the bat.
Thank you.
So, Sydney, how long have you been with Gavilan and what do you do?
So I've been with Gavilan for 3 years, almost to the day. I started out supporting a Title V grant, and now I work in the Research and Institutional Planning and Effectiveness Office. I am, as Peter says, I am the pie in our pie. And I do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, so tell me both a little bit about your family. So we've got a couple of ends of the spectrum here, 21 years, 3 years. So tell me about your families. When you came to work for the community college, what did you tell your family you were going to go off and do?
That's an interesting question. Well, my family was accustomed to me working. But we had just moved here from New York to California when I applied for the job. And it was kind of a strange beginning in that I always saw the sign for Gavilan Community College on the highway, but could never really see it. So it was always this mystical place on the hillside. So my first encounter was to go for my interview, and ended up parking in the wrong place and couldn't find the location because it was the office I was going to was down by the tennis courts, and I had to interview up in the administration building. So I had this lovely walk on this beautiful, gorgeous campus. And so I reported that back to my family. What a wonderful, interesting environment to work in, and was excited about that. And that's what I shared with them. And I still love that environment.
That is a beautiful campus.
How about for you, Sydney? You came to us from a farm, right?
I did. My background is I've I've been in education for 15, 17 years, and then I stepped away and I started a organic farm in Prunedale, and so I was out of education for 8 years, I guess. And when I came to Gavilan, I was excited to get back into really what my love is, which is helping students succeed and just supporting them in whatever it is that I can help be part of their journey. But I hadn't ever worked in a community college before. And honestly, I thought a college was a college was a college. And I think fundamentally, that's the foundation of every college is to work with students and help them get where they want to get. But a community college is different. So I was not aware of all the different things that you have to do and reports that you have to make and justification of everything. And it's at first I found it really uncomfortable because it was different. And now I'm appreciating the transparency that the community college system is.
And if I could add to my comments,
Yeah.
taking from what Sydney said, the goal and mission of community colleges is just fantastic. And it's really, I think, so essential to any workforce, a strong workforce in your state or your community, and providing students the opportunity to explore, find their career path, and become valuable citizens. And I think community colleges, junior colleges, really fit that place in our lives, and I hope we can continue to do that kind of work because it is so essential to our economy and to our communities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now you're both in our community college culture, and we are focusing primarily on Women's History Month and the importance of providing educational opportunities for women. So, Nancy, we'll start with you. What major changes have you experienced for women while in the workplace here at Gavilan for the past 21 years?
Well, I really have been impressed with Gavilan and the leadership role women have taken. When I arrived, we had a female president, and since that time, our executive level is comprised of 3 strong women: our current president, Dr. Rose, and our 2 vice presidents, Kathleen Moberg and Danae Pescarmona. And all 3 of you provide great leadership. In addition, our leadership council, which includes directors, managers, associate vice presidents, deans, I think there's about 30 people in that group. And I did a little count, and there are 11 women. I think it's 11, or maybe it's a 20 count. I'm not sure. But 11 women in that leadership group, which I think is outstanding. And they all do wonderful work here at Gavilan. So just an increase in the role of women in leadership at Gavilan has changed.
Yeah,
and increased.
Absolutely. Sydney, have you observed anything about women and women's leadership while you've been here at Gavilan?
Well, again, 3 years. So as far as changes, I walked into a college that had women leadership and women that ran grants. And also, although many folks are not in a leadership position, I think there are many women that are leaders, regardless of position in this college. And I'm grateful that the college supports that and doesn't look so much at title, but looks at skill. And I'm appreciative of that.
So who are some of the women who have been most influential in your life so far, and why?
I'll start again. It's an easy answer for me. It's my mom. She's currently 95 years old. She has been an educator, an elementary school teacher. She's very strong. She does community service. At 95, she's still involved in service learning projects with the University of Wisconsin, where she lives nearby, and provides them with interviews, and she sits on panels, and the students enjoy her, and she is still learning and teaching at 95 years old, which is so impressive. And she was a great working mom and seemed to be able to do it all. And this, of course, started in the 50s when she was working, and it wasn't exactly acceptable, or women were just starting to grow into that workforce. So I'm very proud of everything she's done.
That's great. What a wonderful tribute.
It is.
And Sydney, how about for you?
For me, I was fortunate enough to have two very strong women as supervisors at the university that I worked at back east. And I've been able to take pieces of what they did and incorporate that into both my work style and also as a bar, a level of what I would what I expect, and also what I give out as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important for all of us to have influential, strong, supportive women around us, and that's why I wanted both of you to be in the podcast booth with me today and talk about your experience as women here at the college. But I think I'm correct in that you're both grandmothers, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So Nancy, I know, has a granddaughter. And Sydney, I think you now have two granddaughters?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So you both have granddaughters. What importance do you hope to have education play in their lives in the future? And do you see them coming to, of course, Gavilan College in the future, or any community college in the future, or college, period? Well, Sydney, why don't you start?
Well, so yes, there will be college in their future. Mm-hmm. I'm first-generation college, and I have one son, and he is going to start on his master's degree in the fall, which I'm very proud of him, totally proud of him. And so both he and his wife have bachelor's degrees. I would assume, because I think he sees what education can do and does do, that his daughters will be educated. They will also be musicians if he has anything to say about it. But yes, they live in Fresno, so they probably won't be coming to Gavilan. But
hey, you never know.
This is true. But yeah, I think education opens so many doors that it's critical that they will. I'll make sure they go to college and other stuff too. Play in the dirt a little bit.
And what are their names?
The oldest, she's 2. Her name's Lily Boston, and Finley Scott is 7 months old.
Well, we'll have to make sure and get them outfit with Gav gear.
Oh, yes.
And they need to come to campus for sure.
Okay.
And so, Nancy, tell us a bit about Emma and your aspirations for her.
Well, Emma's 2 years old. Both her parents have college degrees, so I know they have already started a fund for her education, and they've asked us grandparents, instead of birthday gifts and Christmas gifts, if we would please write a check for those events. So we are trying to contribute in our small way also. And my hope for Emma in education, I know she will go on and have extensive education. However, my hope for her is that whatever it is, that she's really happy and passionate about what she does, regardless of the degree she receives or the training she receives, that it's something she loves to do. That sure makes life a whole lot more pleasant, and because I found that out myself here at Gavilan. So both in education, but in doing something she loves.
Absolutely. And so, I need to get in on this grandmother conversation too, because, of course, you both know that I have grandchildren as well. I have 4, but I have one granddaughter, Joanna Rosemarie Neff, and she is 15 months old, and she is definitely the alpha of the group, and so no doubt she will go to college. And I look forward very much to seeing what occurs in her journey. All my grandkids have a college account that I have set up for them. And so Joanna will have the opportunity to make that decision in the future. And I also agree that whatever she chooses, as long as she feels passionate and has the opportunity to think creatively, I will be in support of that. Okay, so we have time for one more question. The theme for International Women's Day this year is Balance for Better. Balance for Better. So as you hear that phrase, what does that phrase mean to you?
Well, I think my first thought is to have good balance in your life. But if I extend it to thinking of international women, I think it's probably a balance in the world in terms of women's roles, whether it be in business, in politics, that we always, in employment, that we have a balance for women. And I know in my lifetime, and thinking of my mother, the 50s, it was not really acceptable for women to be in the workforce that much, and they were not treated equally. And I recently saw a CNN program where they went through that time period, and I was just amazed in my lifetime how the role of women and the things available to them have changed just in that, what I feel is a short time period. And but there's a ways to go. And I think I personally appreciate those collectively or individually that have come forward and speak on behalf of women and help change any inequities. And so I have benefited from that, and I do appreciate it.
Yeah, well stated. Thanks, Nance. And for Sydney, how about for you?
Well, shoot, Nancy should have gone last because that was fabulous and very accurate. The thing that I immediately thought of was when I was younger with a young family, I thought that I had to do it all, that we, in order to be successful or just to have food on the table, you just have to do it all, and all at the same time. And so that was not balanced at all because sleep was kind of secondary. And I see my daughter-in-law. She's balancing a career and two young children. One is very strong-willed, and she does it with such grace. But I worry that she doesn't have a balance in her life because she's got two young kids. So that's immediately what I think of as actual day-to-day balance. Somewhere along the lines, I realized you can have it all, but you just probably can't have it all at the same time. And so I'm enjoying a little bit more of free time on the weekends instead of worried about some other things that I used to. But I think Nancy's correct in that there is a world balance that needs to take place, and we need to be aware of that. We live in a place that right now is beautiful and green and lush, and there are people that walk miles for water. So we do have work to do.
Absolutely. Well, I so appreciate the two of you coming in for the first of my two-part series on women at Gavilan, who are our bright, shining examples of strong, resilient, amazing women who contribute so much to the life of the college. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day for coming and sharing yourselves with us today. Thanks.
Thank you for asking us.
Okay, we're back for the tail end of the Presidential Podcast. That was great talking to Nancy and to Sydney. I really appreciate time with them. And so this is part one of a part two I'll be back next week, and I will surprise you then with 2 more women from the campus who will come and share a little bit about their lives with our podcast audience. Before I go, I wanted to share with you a couple of more remarkable women from the National Women's Hall of Fame. So I went to New York State last summer to visit my family. As you all know, I'm from upstate New York. And I went to visit the National Women's Hall of Fame in Seneca Falls, New York. So in 1969, the women and men of Seneca Falls created the National Women's Hall of Fame, believing that the contributions of American women deserved a permanent home in the small village where the fight for women's rights began. And the hall is currently housed in the heart of the downtown historic district. If you ever get a chance to go to Seneca Falls, it's literally a one street main street, but it's where the women's right for vote to vote really began. So the National Women's Hall of Fame is the nation's oldest membership organization dedicated to recognizing and celebrating the achievements of great American women. This esteemed group grows with each induction ceremony, and as women continue to influence and shape the arts, athletics, business, education, government, humanities, philanthropy, and science, they add to the Women's Hall of Fame. And so currently there's been 256 women inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame. So I spent several hours walking through the Women's Hall of Fame, taking pictures, and I bought a book entitled The Inspiring Women of the National Women's Hall of Fame. So I'm going to read randomly just a couple of women's bios from the National Women's Hall of Fame, and then I'll choose 2 more for the second podcast that I do in another week just to share. And if you're interested, stop by my office. I have this book on my shelf, and I'd be happy to share with you others. So here's the first one. And let's see what you know about the women that I'm going to profile today. The first is Bella Abzug. Bella Abzug lived from 1920 to 1998. Bella Abzug always championed women's rights, human rights, equality, peace, and social justice. Abzug worked as an attorney in civil rights and labor law, working often without pay to represent the poor, minorities, and those attacked by forces of oppression. In 1970, she won the Democratic Party primary in New York's 19th district, and in 1971 took her seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. Wearing her trademark wide-brimmed hat, she landed running, introducing legislation calling for an end to the Vietnam War, banning discrimination against women seeking credit, gay rights, reproductive freedom, and more. She helped found the National Women's Political Caucus and introduced legislation creating Women's Equality Day. Abzug ran unsuccessfully for the U.S. Senate in 1976, but she continued her advocacy, playing a major role in the 1977 National Women's Conference and serving for a time as President Carter's chair of the National Advisory Commission on Women. At the time of her death, she headed the Women's Environment and Development Organization, part of Women USA, and worked to improve the environment. So that's a bit about Bella. The second woman I chose is Abigail Adams. Abigail Adams lived from 1744 to 1818. What's amazing to me about Abigail is that she was the wife of one president and the mother of another. Abigail Adams was more than a family helpmate. She was insightful, witty, and intensely concerned with politics. She shared and shaped her husband John's political thought and career. Because of his service to the nation in war and diplomacy, they spent more than half of their married life apart, but they communicated closely. In early 1776, she was caring for their 4 young children alone, but she wrote him to urge daring and boldness, quoting Shakespeare, quote, "There is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune," end quote. In her famous Remember the Lady's Letter, Abigail Adams half-jestingly proposed that women should claim their share of liberty. She objected specifically to the legal codes under which married women could not own property. But she was ahead of her time. Later generations of women would have to struggle to change such laws. I never wanted your assistance more in my life, or advice, John Adams wrote to her earnestly after his election as the second president of the United States. Ironically, the reinforcement he gained from Abigail may have prevented him from developing the willingness to compromise. His unbending devotion to principle helped to make him a one-term president. Interesting facts about women in our nation. All right, that's it for me for this week's Presidential Podcast, and I'll be back in another week with another installment of this month's special edition. You all take care.